Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris here, and I wanted to offer my thoughts on Doom: The Dark Ages. And for a little bit of context here, I did not play much of Doom Eternal. I played a little bit. I love Doom 2016. In fact, that's still my favorite modern Doom. I do think Doom 2016 is better than The Dark Ages, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. But also kind of talk about my experience playing it within the Xbox ecosystem in terms of I had it on my Series X, but I also streamed it some. I played it on my Series S. There were a variety of things happening that caused me to play it in a couple of different, I guess, modalities, if you will, within the Xbox framework. And so I wanted to talk about that a little bit too. So, starting with the game, I think the game is a lot of fun. I think it's exactly what you would expect from a Doom game, right? It's fast paced, it's running guns, shooting demons, having heavy caliber weapons, whether it's shotguns, rocket launchers. I think it's called the Cycler, was sort of my go to thing. It's this sort of energy plasm thing that shoots really fast, and you constantly upgrade it by getting rubies around the map, finding secrets, wraith stones, all these different things to help make your arsenal basically unstoppable. And for context, right? I've mentioned this on the channel before, but I'm 43 years old. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I enjoy the Doom games, but for some reason, I just had it in mind that I was going to play this on the easiest difficulty. And some people are going to hear that and say, oh, you didn't even really experience the game. I would say that I did. I did not die a single time while I was playing it, and I probably could have turned it up a little bit. But I wanted to play it and see what was new in the world of Doom so that I could get to some other games. I really want to play Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think that looks really good, even though I've never been able to get into an Assassin's Creed game. I think that one looks really cool, and I want to check it out. But also, the Switch 2 is coming soon, and as soon as that gets here, I'm going to spend a lot of time diving into Mario Kart World and some other things, coming up soon. Donkey Kong Bonanza, I think it is the new Donkey Kong game in July. So I wanted to just play it and get through it, but not necessarily sink a ton of time in it. And I would say when I went through each level, sometimes I would finish with like 40% completion, sometimes like 70 or 80%, that sort of thing. But the gameplay in this Doom, I think, is good. It's grounded. It is fast paced, but it's not, and you've probably seen other people say this, but not as like, I don't know, acrobatic and aerial as Doom Eternal. I don't think it quite hits the same sweet spot as Doom 2016, and I like sort of the compartmentalized nature of the maps and the approach in that one. There are kind of open world elements to this, but it's more like sandbox open world. It's not true open world where there's some puzzle solving, some platforming, that kind of stuff. There is a story here, but I don't even know, having just beaten the game a few hours ago, if I could really even summarize it. There's a king on this planet. It's supposed to be kind of reminiscent of the Dark Ages. I mean, I guess in a fantasy way, right? Because there are dragons and hellish monsters, of course, because it's Doom, but also futuristic weapons. The story makes, in my opinion, almost no sense whatsoever, but it's fine. I mean, it's serviceable. It gets you from point A to B to C through the end of the game, and whatever, it works. Again, the gameplay is mostly good. There are a number of moments in the game where you're riding on a dragon, and so there's some aerial stuff in it, and I think it handles pretty well. There are some times where it's a little bit clumsy, where you're having to navigate sort of narrow tunnels at high speed, chasing other flying enemies, that kind of stuff. There are some sequences, some levels where you're inside of a giant mech, and I think that stuff is really fun too. I actually like that better than the flying stuff. It's got a lot of weight to it, and there's some, skill involved with like dodging sword attacks and punches and that kind of thing. I will say, as the game progressed, it started to feel a little bit repetitive to me. I mean, but that's Doom, right? I mean, you kind of know what you're getting into when you play a Doom game, but I was ready for it to end when it ended. I don't typically assign a number score to games, but I would say I land at like a 7.5 out of 10, if that's helpful for you, in sort of figuring out something like Doom, The Dark Ages, and whether or not you want to play it. But because it's on Game Pass, if you have an Xbox, if you've got Game Pass, play the game, right? But getting back to what I mentioned earlier about how I played it in a couple of different ways, right? I started playing it on my Series X. I got through the first like 3 or 4 levels that way. And then this past Tuesday, I was lifting something heavier than I should have. I tweaked my back, because that happens when you get a little bit older and you don't prep for lifting things the way you should. So I was sort of out of commission in a recliner for a couple of days as I was sort of on the mend dealing with that. And so rather than taking up the television in the living room, what I did was I had my laptop in my lap and I streamed it from xCloud that way. And it was pretty much flawless. I mean, there were a couple of times where a couple of hiccups happened, but I'm impressed by how far xCloud has come. I mean, to me, it was almost on par, if not on par, with Stadia. Now defunct at this point, but Stadia to me was sort of the gold standard for streaming services and how fluid they could be. I beat a number of games on Stadia, Tomb Raider Definitive Edition, Little Nightmares 2, I think it was, a few different games, but it played great streaming. I was really happy with how that played. In fact, I streamed it on a Chromebook with a big screen. I had my Xbox controller, no issues connecting that, getting it to work. Um, Out of curiosity, I even played it briefly using a backbone controller with my iPhone, which worked well enough, but the screen was so small, for the older eyes, I guess. I just didn't do a whole lot of that, but it worked fine. And then I also downloaded it on my Series S because that was a more convenient console when I was downstairs, sort of briefly recuperating from some back issues, right? But what was really cool about that is just how flawlessly everything syncs across platforms, how well the streaming works. And I think it kind of, for me, served as sort of a glimpse into the future of what Xbox has been trying to build this whole time. Will the next generation of Xbox have a physical console? I think it will for the hardcore gamer, but the streaming honestly has gotten so good that for a lot of people it's good enough. I still think that I'm going to want some hardware just to have it, but when I'm traveling, for example, when I go to visit family, as long as the internet connection is decently solid, I don't think I'll have any major issues playing games that way. So what was cool about this experience of playing Doom: The Dark Ages for me was not just that I had a fun time playing the game, but I got to see, I think, firsthand, by necessity, how much Xbox has evolved in their platform and what they offer. So anyway, I enjoyed the game, and I think it's just, again, another bellwether thing, just like I said with South of Midnight, that Game Pass is delivering on its promise. It really is. And it's not going to be a whole lot longer, I don't think, before we get the Gears of War remastered, which I'm really excited about. I've started playing Expedition 33 because my buddy Michael has been like, oh, you got to play it. I think it's good so far. It has not completely blown my socks off. But again, it just speaks to the quality and number of games that are available on Game Pass. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Doom: The Dark Ages. If you've played it, let me know what you think in the comments. But also, I'm curious too, if you've been streaming anything, if you've been playing on xCloud or doing any of that kind of stuff within the Xbox ecosystem, let me know what your experience has been like. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll check back in soon.